Hi everybody, welcome back to another video. It is I, Yasmina, your local mom friend, and today I'll be going through 22 books to get you hooked onto reading for 2022. This can either be for you mutual readers out there who like to read a lot, or then for you who just wants to get back into reading and don't really know where to start, and you want an addictive book so that you don't just, kind of give up midway. So these recommendations are for you. I have divided the books into 4 different categories. The categories are feel-good category, the classics, the mystery/fantasy category, and young adult books. Additionally, I also have a category of books that I have hated personally, but other people really have seem to love. I've tried to choose books diversely, ranging both from very interesting and hooking storylines to interesting characters or character developments. Let's start off with the first category. But before that, don't forget to subscribe for more quality content. By feel-good category, I mean the same as feel-good movies. They give you a nice feeling when you read them. They might be humor books or they might be romantic comedies or whatever, but they make you feel good when you read them, and the main focus is on the character development. The first book in this category is The Beach Read by Emily Henry. This book had me hooked from page number 1. I absolutely love this. It was so easy to read, but still very gripping. This tells a story about 2 writers who switch genres. One of the writers is a hopeless romantic, while the other is a more serious literary type who does not believe in fairy tale love. And it tells the chemistry between them two and how they start writing the books and trying to understand each other. The second book that I have in this category is Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This book is hilarious. I absolutely loved it. The humor. It took me a bit longer to read, but it has lovable characters. Plot was not as addictive for me as the previous book, but I really like getting to know each and every one of the characters here. So this is a group of elderly people who live in a retirement home who have a club dedicated to solving murders called the Thursday Murder Club. And then suddenly one day an actual murder happens in their little town and they start investigating that. This is not a murder mystery novel. It is more a novel about the characters and comedy within that. It's not really a comedy book, but it's written with great humor. Richard Osman actually has come out with a new book this year, or last year, at the end of last year, called The Man Who Died Twice. I haven't had the time to read this yet, but this is next on my reading list, and it already has a splash of tea because I clearly drink too much tea. The third book in this category is The Switch by Beth O'Leary. Also the Flatshare, strong recommendation, but if I have to choose one of the two, I'm recommending The Switch. Once again, a very humorous book, very lovable characters. Beach Read, the authors swapped genres. In The Switch, the characters swapped their homes. So a grandmother and her granddaughter decide to swap their homes because the grandma wants to have a more action-filled life and come to live to London, try to find a man, so forth. Whereas the granddaughter wants her quieter life to focus on recovering from her burnout. Very lovely, witty, and well written, and I love the story. Very, very feel good. Like that just emanates a feel good book for me. Fourth book and last one in this category is Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. This could also go in the classic sections because I feel like it, through its success, it has become a very well-known book. It tells the story of a woman who decides to go through a divorce, and after that divorce realizes that she needs to find herself, or she wants to dedicate time to finding herself. So she decides to travel the world to 3 different places to try and find herself through that. It's based on true events, but it's still not an autobiography. It's written in a novel form. If you enjoyed Elizabeth Gilbert's writing style, you would also, and the whole book, you would also enjoy Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, which is also a novel based on true events where Dolly Alderton tells everything she knows about love through her story and her life experiences. Now moving on to the second category, meaning the classics. By the classics, I mean books that I either really classified as the classic, Moby Dick, just Jane Austen, and then books that have become classics through the success that they have gained. First book in this category is none other than the mentioned Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. I haven't read this book, but since this is the favorite of so many, I decided to mention it here, and it's the ultimate classic. Plus, it's only like 200 pages, a bit more, so this is a pretty thin book to start off with, but summed up in the back it says it's an ironic novel of manners. It's written with wit, social precision, and above all, irresistible heroine. Excited to read this. Book number 6 is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Once again, a very, very well-known book, which you probably all have read in school, but we don't need to read this in school. In Europe, I think it's only like in the UK and US that you read this. In any case, I just read it and absolutely loved it. The story was great. The morale of the story was great. I loved Harper's writing style. Yeah, it basically follows a trial of a black man who has been accused of raping a white woman, written through the perspective of a 6-year-old child, and the teachings that her father, who is the defendant of the accused, through the teachings that the father Atticus tells his daughter. Book number 7 is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. Probably pronounced it wrong in English, but in any case, also haven't read it, also on my list to read this year, but once again, a very acclaimed and praised book, and I've honestly not heard anything bad about this book, so I dare to say that I can recommend it. A 12-year-old Amir is desperate to win the local kite fighting tournament, and his loyal friend Hassan promises to help him, but neither of the boys can foresee what will happen to Hassan that afternoon, an event that is to shatter their lives. After the Russians invade, the family is forced to flee to America. Amir realizes that one day he must return to Afghanistan under Taliban rule to find the one thing that his new world cannot grant him: redemption. From the same author, also on this list as the 8th book, I think, was it the 8th book? 1,000 Splendid Suns, which once again I've only heard praise of, nothing negative, apart from the fact that it is a very unfair story and a very, not a tough read, but it's a lot to process in a sense, and yeah, so that is also on my recommendation list. Book number 9 is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Before reading it, I read somewhere that it's a sci-fi dystopian novel, but I absolutely don't think it's that. It is a story situated in the 2010s, I think, that depicts how our life could be if history had gone differently. The whole point of the book is that you don't necessarily know what's happening, and things are revealed to you slowly through reading, and how the society is different from our society currently. This is a book that took time to actually understand. Number 10 is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. So I think this is actually my favorite book I've ever read. If you have to start out of any of these 22 books, start with that one. Super thin, easily read. So the story revolves around this man called Dorian Gray, and he learns from this guy, or is compelled by this guy, that the only thing that matters in life is basically beauty. And so Dorian decides to sell his soul in order to have a portrait made of him, so that the portrait would only age and not him. Last book in this category is The Time Traveler's Wife. This book could also go to the fantasy category, but it has also become a well-known classic over time, so that's why I've included it in the classic. This book tells the story of a girl and a boy, or a girl and a man, woman and a man, I don't know, who meet and how their story intertwines through time. So the man is a time traveler. The narration focuses on the story through both of their eyes. It kind of jumps through time, and it's beautifully written, and love the story so much. Third category in this video is mystery/fantasy. So I just wanted to dump a bunch of really hooking books with a great storyline and great plot. The main focus is on the plot, of course, great character development, so forth, but the plot is like the essential. So if you want a good kind of adventure, whatever book, these are for you. Book number 12, The Handmaid's Tale. This book is chef's kiss, so good. It's addicting. This is a dystopian novel compared to Never Let Me Go. This really is a dystopian novel. Basic storyline, it's a dystopian novel where women are no longer fertile. They depend on handmaids, the only fertile women in the world, few ones, to carry babies for them. And it follows the story through one of these handmaids and the things that she has to go through, what her life was like before and what it's like now, and rebellion against. Next up is all of Joel Dicker's books, but especially The Truth About the Harry Quebert Case, which is also a very well-known book. Also has been made into a miniseries, but haven't watched. But in any case, the book tells the story of a young girl's murder, and a man starts to investigate a murder because the person who's been charged with the murder of the girl pleads innocent, or tells his friend that he is innocent even though he is charged of the murder. So the friend starts to investigate the case and digs deeper into what the truth of the case actually is. Another one of Joel Dicker's books, so book number 14, is The Disappearance of Stephanie Mailer. This one, A Disappearance, focuses on the disappearance of a journalist in mysterious circumstances. Started investigating an old murder case, I think it was, and suddenly disappears, and then they start digging both into the old murder case and the disappearance and try to find if there's a connection between those two. Book number 15, And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Once again, a very well-known book. If it's not familiar for you, I think it was 12 people go on an island together for like a vacation, and suddenly they start dying one by one. The rest of the people remaining start to try and investigate who the murderer is and what could be happening and so forth. A very addictive, very strong thriller. Book number 16 is one that I actually have here, is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I haven't finished it, I'm halfway through, but I can already recommend this because I absolutely love this. This is the story of Nora, who dies in the beginning of the book. It's not a spoiler, it literally says in the back. She dies in the beginning of the book and goes into this place called the Midnight Library, where she is given the possibility to live her life through the many different possibilities that her life could have taken if she would have chosen differently in different stages of her life. This just raises the question that with infinite choices, what is the best way to live? I really like this book. It's also very adventurous because her different lives are very different, and it's nice to plunge into so many stories in a sense. And lastly in this category is the Dan Brown series, so the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons. Both the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons is a hooking book. If you haven't read them, go read them. If you want to read one or the other, what are you doing? Read both of them. Angels and Demons tells the story of symbologist Robert Langdon is invited to the Vatican City after the Pope's death because 4 of the cardinals have been kidnapped and held hostage by a mysterious person who most likely represents the Illuminati, and then begins the chase to find these 4 cardinals before they're murdered on each hour before midnight. And the Da Vinci Code has a bit of the same thing, except that they're searching for this really old code before it falls into the hands of the wrong people. Behind the code is the chance to find the Holy Grail. And last category in this video will be young adults. Now, don't judge this category too fast, because young adult literature has the best stories ever. The actual language might not be as exquisite and like stimulating and so forth, but the stories and the fantasy that these novels have is incredible. First of all, I'm going to recommend Any Rick Riordan series. There is the Percy Jackson series that I'm rereading for probably the 5th time this year. Heroes of Olympus series, one that I don't remember, House of Hades series, no, it wasn't that, I don't know, something like that. And then the Red Pyramid series. The series focus on different mythologies. The Red Pyramid focuses on the Egyptian mythology, Percy Jackson on the Greek mythology, the Heroes of Olympus on Roman mythology, and then I think there's the series that the name I don't remember, but it focuses on Norse Viking gods. I haven't read it personally, but everybody recommends it and talks about it, is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, the TikTok book. Apparently very addictive and you want to read it. So that, Anna and the French Kiss, I used to love this book, love this book when I was 15. It tells the story about Anna who goes on an exchange to France and all the shenanigans that happen there, the cute boys that she meets, so forth, Okay, and the last book in this series that I'm going to recommend is Miss You by Katie Eberlin. Isn't my top favorite book, but I really enjoyed it still. It's the story of Tess and Gus, who are meant to be, but they haven't met properly yet, and they keep on running into each other in various situations during their life. And that's how it follows. So it depicts both of their lives separately, through both their point of view. And I really like the idea of the story that it's 2 random strangers who just keep seeing each other everywhere. They're like, what? A book that I forgot to mention in the mystery fantasy section is the book by Camilla Grebe, Everybody Lies. This is a Swedish author, so if you want to read in Swedish or Finnish or other Nordic languages, it will be translated in any of those. I read one of her other books, The Shadow Something, but I didn't like it because the ending was just here's the serial killer, no explanation, whereas this one is way more hooking. It tells the story through many characters' perspective, but mostly Maria's, whose stepdaughter, Yasmin, suddenly disappears one night, and first is suspected that she committed suicide, but after that, Maria's husband, meaning Yasmin's father, is accused of Yasmin's murder. And this goes through how the shock of having your husband accused of your daughter's murder, and yeah, just starting to sort out the whole mess that's happening in the book. And as said, told through multiple different characters. I like the fact that there are so many storylines that connect to the same story. So Nordic noir, I think, would be described. But in any case, probably not an author that you've heard of in the same way as all the others, but maybe something for you. Sorry if you can hear my neighbor's kids screaming, but the books that I hate but other people seem to love include The Catcher in the Rye by Salinger, The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I won't be going into these, but I just wanted to mention them in case you wanted to look them up. That was it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to comment down below your favorite books, or if you're participating into the book challenge, 22 books for 2022. You're royalty for sticking all the way until the end. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe for more quality content if you haven't already. I post every Monday, so make sure to tune in next Monday for a brand new video. If you want to follow me on Instagram, it's called @jasusstories, and I also have a podcast, which you should definitely check out, called @momfriendhotline. You can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. I will see you next Monday in a brand new video. Until then, take care and bye!